8 years ago, the federal government thought it expedient to establish various centers of excellence across the nation in a bid towards encouraging cutting-edge research and innovation in public tertiary institutions as a way of fast-tracking the socio-economic development of Nigeria. However, despite the lofty efforts of government in driving this initiative over the years, some of the centers have fallen short of expectations and failed to deliver on their mandates. The Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Mamman, obviously dissatisfied with the development, has since stated that the government will no longer keep committing resources to those centers that are not pulling their weight and not living up to their billings. He seems to be echoing the words of Aristotle, the great Greek philosopher, and Polymath, who posited that excellence is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, and intelligent execution. It represents the wise choice of alternatives. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Whilst recognizing that a good number of the centers are currently far from living the Aristotle creed, the Education Minister has since stated that the federal government will not continue to reward the inertia being displayed by some of them and maintain that henceforth no money will be disbursed to those performing below par. The minister, who made the statement whilst receiving the reports of 2 ad hoc committees on assessment and review of TETFund centers of excellence and operationalization of skills development special intervention in Abuja recently, also spoke on the commitment of the federal government in improving the quality and number of equipment required to improve the skill sets of students in polytechnics and other tertiary institutions as a way of deploying high-grade and adequate manpower, not only for the service of the nation, but that which can also be exported to serve other nations of the world.
We're not going to reward indolence. This is just the point. We can't be giving money to institutions that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then in terms of the skilling, yeah, we want to raise the skill level, the equipment level of those institutions, polytechnics and others, so that they can provide all the skill sets that we need in Nigeria to the highest quality that can provide service in the country and internationally.
Presenting the report of the ad hoc committee for the assessment and review of TETFund centers of excellence to the Honorable Minister, Professor Oyewale Tomori noted that the committee visited different institutions where it carried out on-the-spot assessment of the centers, and for the committee, none of the 27 centers of excellence established by TETFund deserves an upgrade. He also called on government to work towards providing some of the centers with bailout funds to ensure their proper takeoff. In presenting the report of the Advisory Committee on Operationalization of Skills Development Special Intervention, the chairman, Professor Idris Bugaje, who doubles as the Executive Secretary, National Board of Technical Education (NBTE), and represented by Dr. Nuru Yakubu, posited that Nigeria must take deliberate steps to boost its informal and skills-based sector if the prevalent high rate of unemployment pervading the polity must be cut down drastically. According to the committee, over 90% of employment in Nigeria at the moment is generated from the informal sector, and that accounts for over 100 million of the young population, hence the need to formalize the sector. While the report of the Advisory Committee on Effective Implementation and Operationalization of Equipment Upgrade was presented by its chairman, Professor Hayward Babale, he said the committee findings were quite disturbing, noting that most of the equipment in the institutions were decrepit and certainly not in conformity with the dictates of the 21st century. While upholding the consensus to stop committing huge sums on funds to non-performing TETFund centers of excellence, the fund's Executive Secretary, Architect Soni S.T. Chuno, claimed that some of the centers have yet to access their allotted funds since inception.
We do feel that not all the centers, some have done fantastic. A lot of them are doing innovations. Sokoto just came up with one major solution for us. For example, they are the ones that discovered these vaccines in partnership with other institutions, the vaccines for COVID. Now we are also in the process of getting vaccines for Lassa fever and so many others. So some are doing very well. And some have come up with prototypes that we are hoping to now take to industry so that they'll begin to produce these goods and services. But quite a good number of them were not doing well. And we wanted to have a kind of survey, to have an audit of these centers of excellence to give us a basis for further intervention.
In a separate event, the Executive Secretary announced that the federal government has approved the sum of 25 billion naira to upgrade laboratories and workshops in public universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education, technical. Architect Soni St. Chuno made this known at the inauguration of a 55-member committee of TETFund National Research Fund and Screening and Monitoring Committee NRFS and MC recently in Abuja. The event also featured the presentation of the 48-member committee of the Technical Advisory Group TAG of the fund. The Executive Secretary said the National Research Fund Screening and Monitoring Committee was set up by the fund's Board of Trustees as a way of bolstering top-tier educational infrastructure in the country. Earlier, the Minister of Education, Tahir Maman, while inaugurating the committee, urged the academia to step up cutting-edge research as a way of contributing to speedy development of the nation. These are indeed good times for students of tertiary institutions in Nigeria. Not only have the federal government enacted a law on granting non-interest-bearing loans to students through the Special Purpose Vehicle of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, TETFund, the Tinubu administration is also stepping up the construction of hostel facilities for the benefit of students all across the nation. For a long time, the dearth of standard hostel facilities have been hampering the delivery of quality education in the nation's tertiary institutions, and the federal government is stopping at nothing to address the issue. Recently, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Last Add Corr, disclosed government's plan to provide a sum of 98.2 billion naira for the construction of more than 1,600 bed spaces for students in tertiary institutions across Nigeria. The minister, who made this known at the foundation laying ceremony for a 1,600 bed capacity hostel initiated by African Plus Partners in collaboration with the Tertiary Education Trust Fund TETFund at the Akwa Ibom State University, Ikodapandem, and Badeni local government area of the state, believes that the move will bring huge relief to students whilst chasing their various academic dreams. Mr. Last Add Corr, who was represented by his permanent secretary, Mr. Udo Ekanam, said the project will be reduplicated in 36 tertiary institutions across the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria, and also lauded the partnership between TETFund and African Plus Partners in bringing the initiative into fruition.
We are indeed building the future of our nation that will enable our children to grow in terms of innovation and creativity.
The minister seized the moment to canvass support for the Tinubu administration's quest of correcting the ills that have been bedeviling the education sector for decades. Speaking at the event, TETFund's Executive Secretary, Architect Soni St. Chuno, said the fund planned to spend a sum of 72 billion naira on modern hostel provision for students' convenience in the next 24 months.
These hostel projects, this year alone, we are going to intervene in 36 institutions all across the country. The first 12 will be private-public partnerships like this, where in partnership with the private sector, we are able to leverage additional financial resources to do more in terms of the number of, on this side we are going to be providing 1,600 units of housing. For those who have not been able to move as quickly as this, who are still using the old system of the contract system, we have discouraged that by making the funding available to them less. So for those who are using the PPP model, TETFund is providing 1 billion each, and that fund is ready for release for this project immediately.
Speaking at the event, Akwa Ibom State Governor Omo Obasieno, represented by the Education Commissioner, Mrs. Idongeside Etiebet, commended the initiators of the hostel project, which will definitely serve as a major catalyst in boosting effective learning in public third-tier institutions. The governor stated that the growth of any modern society is measured by the investment made in education, and that the state government will continue to put resources into education to enable students develop their potentials as early as possible.
Today's event is very important in the sense that it will further boost our collective effort in providing a conducive environment for our students to study and come out as well-rounded graduates ready to face the world, defined by opportunities and challenges. I must commend all the critical partners of this project, especially the African Close Partners Nigeria Limited, the TETFund, and all the other stakeholders for jointly coming together to undertake this project. On behalf of the government and people of Akwa Ibom State, I welcome you to our dear state.
In his address, the Vice-Chancellor of Akwa Ibom State University posited that lack of accommodation has been largely responsible for the inability of the school to admit students to fill admission spaces, as candidates prefer other institutions that can provide such.
This project is a public-private partnership, PPP arrangement between the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFund, and African Plus Partnership Nigeria Limited, APPNL, to construct 2 blocks of hostels which will house 800 students each, amounting to 1,600 bed spaces. It is an all-inclusive hostel with ancillary facilities that will add to the convenience of our students, and the project is expected to be completed in 12 months.
The Managing Director of Africa Plus Partners, Mr. Adeniro Ajakadie, in his introductory remarks, said his company conceived the project when it discovered that the gap in hostel accommodation in Nigeria is in excess of 80%, and that the provision of comfortable accommodation will not only offer students adequate protection, but also guarantee them a good reading and learning environment. In a related development, during a recent one-day workshop on emerging areas of students' needs in beneficiary institutions in Abuja, TETFund's Executive Secretary, Architect Suni S.T. Chuno, again seized the moment to elucidate on the plans of the agency to provide 1 billion naira allocation each as equity contribution towards construction of hostel facilities for 12 federal institutions made up of 6 universities, 3 polytechnics, and 3 colleges of education across the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. According to him, the 12 billion naira sum for the project, as captured under the 2024 intervention cycle, further underscores the federal government's resolve towards solving the perennial accommodation problems on campuses across the nation. He noted that the workshop is conceived mainly to brainstorm over some identified areas of intervention that are seen to be highly beneficial not only to public tertiary institutions, but also to the students who are the ultimate beneficiaries of all the interventions made to tertiary institutions.
This workshop is conceived mainly for the purpose of brainstorming over some identified areas of intervention that are seen to be highly beneficial not only to our institutions, but to our students, who are the ultimate beneficiaries of all the interventions in our tertiary institutions. That is why, rather than being the recipient of instructions and directives, we have elevated the president of NANS to join his teachers and all of us here today on the high table.
He added that the repositioning of the teaching profession and the teaching practice intervention remain pivotal to the agency, whilst highlighting the presidential directive received from the Federal Ministry of Education for TETFund to keep supporting the teaching practice efforts. Speaking at the occasion, the immediate past President Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics, ASUP, Anderson Ezeibe, stressed the importance of activating a platform by TETFund that will ensure monitoring of its activities at the institutional level in order to get better on-time results. An academic and practitioner in guidance and counseling, Dr. Felix Emuroa, delivered a paper with the theme Incorporating Holistic Approaches to Career Counseling that considers students' personal, academic and professional development needs as a way of getting the best out of students in their various disciplines. Stakeholders in the education sector present at the event included Acting Executive Secretary, National Universities Commission, Dr. Chris Meyaki, the Executive Secretary, National Board for Technical Education, Professor Idris Bugaje, ASU President Emmanuel Oshodeke, NANS President Comrade Lucky Emonefe, and heads of beneficiary institutions in Nigeria. The Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFund, and the Colleges of Education Academic Staff Union, COASU, have expressed their dismay over the escalating trend of converting public colleges of education into universities, especially by state governments. The duos made their disapproval on the subject known at a 3-day national conference and workshop on digital pedagogy, the fundable research proposal writing organized by COASU in Abuja. For architect Soni St. the existing colleges of education are not even currently producing enough teachers for primary schools in the country, even as most universities already have faculties of education situated on their various campuses.
This penchant to want to convert colleges of education to universities. Frankly, I see no need for it. Universities already have faculties of education, and many of the conventional universities have these already. Why don't we produce enough for this basic level first? We can have some level of specialization because improvements come, yes, and some of them already have that, degree awarding status, postgraduate, whatever. But why do we want to convert all our colleges of education to universities when we are not producing enough teachers for our primary schools?
The Executive Secretary therefore urged the federal government and state governments to prioritize education at the basic level, even as he buttressed his argument with examples from the countries of Germany and Japan, where teachers at the basic level earn more than their counterparts at the tertiary level. Similarly, President of COASU, Dr. Smart Olubeko, in an interview spoke on the negative consequences of not having enough colleges of education in the country.
When we talk about colleges of education were established for the purpose of catering for the basic level of education. And when we talk about basic level of education, is the level of education that anybody that wants to be literate will need to pass through. And the college of education are specially dedicated to train people that we teach at this level. Therefore, because our primary schools have collapsed as a result of privatization of primary school at the detriment of the public primary schools, therefore, government, because most of them are elitist in their orientation, in their thinking, what they believe that is all about tertiary education is university, and that is why they keep on converting colleges to university at the detriment of the system.
He called on the government to borrow a leaf from China, where the reverse is the case, as universities are being converted to technical institutions as a means of bolstering the country's technical manpower. TETFund's Executive Secretary, Architect Soni St. has pledged the fund's assistance towards promoting and strengthening the Agribusiness Incubation Center at Michael Okpara University of Agriculture, Umudike. The statesman, who was suitably impressed with the progress made by the center in such a short time after its establishment, made the comment recently when the Vice Chancellor of Michael Okpara University of Agriculture, Umudike, Professor Madwe BBC, Ofor-Iwe led his team on a courtesy visit to the TETFund's executive secretary, to the TETFund's executive management team in Abuja. He noted that the Agribusiness Incubation Center at Michael Okpara University of Agriculture, Umudike, is what the country needs in its bid to tackle food insecurity, in addition to creating employment for youth and women in the agricultural sector.
The vision to establish an agribusiness incubation center in your institution is highly commendable. For through the agricultural value chain development, your incubation center will be creating a vibrant ecosystem for new ideas to flourish, to nurture entrepreneurship and startups, thereby creating desired job opportunities. This will no doubt contribute significantly to the enhancement of agricultural practices in our country.
Architect Ichono disclosed that TETFund will do its best to assist the center not only in terms of provision of facilities, but also in ensuring that academic staff from other federal institutions are sent to Michael Okpara University for training in the agribusiness value chain. Earlier in his address, Professor Iwe said the visit was initiated to commend the good work TETFund is doing all over the tertiary education space in Nigeria, and to also solicit for assistance in boosting the Agribusiness Incubation Center through the provision of modern, fit-for-purpose equipment. The Vice-Chancellor disclosed that the Agribusiness Incubation Center in Michael Okpara University of Agriculture, Umudike, has received an overwhelming endorsement from its catchment areas, with many clamoring for its services as it provides a veritable plank for further training of agri teachers in the nation's institution.
Yes, I'm primarily here with my management team to, among other things, intimate you on the operations of Michael Okpara University of Agriculture Agribusiness Incubation Center, which took off recently. As you are aware, ours is among the 6 approved by the President under his Renewed Hope agenda. Our basic function is to serve as a hub for agribusiness value chain development, to support food security and training by our experts.
We commended the management of TETFund for its spiritedness in transforming the infrastructural landscape of institutions of higher learning, in addition to its excellent scorecard in upgrading available academic and non-academic staff all over the tertiary education space in Nigeria. Accolades have continued to pour in for the Executive Secretary of Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFund, Architect Soni S.T. Echuno, in recognition of the exemplary leadership he has brought to bear on the agency, apart from his sweeping reforms which have resulted in elimination of corruption and improved service delivery to beneficiary institutions. One of such recognitions came recently from the National Association of Academic Technologists, NAT, which conferred an award of excellence on the Executive Secretary for his exemplary leadership in the education sector, quality assurance, and service to humanity at his 5th National Delegates Conference held in the University of Abuja. Speaking after receiving the award, the Executive Secretary expressed appreciation to the President and members of NAT for the recognition, noting that the award will further spur the fund's management to greater productivity. Also, the Outstanding Public Servant of the Year award was recently conferred on Architect Soni S.T. Echuno by the Champion newspapers in recognition of his contribution to the growth and development of the education sector and for turning TETFund into an outstanding public service institution. The award, which was conferred on him by the newspaper in Eko Holiday Inn and Suites, Lagos, lauded Architect Echuno for not only restoring hope and vibrancy in tertiary institutions, but for turning TETFund into a strong brand in the education sector for the overall benefit of students and beneficiary institutions. Architect Soni Echuno assured that the fund will continue to provide support for acquisition of relevant equipment and resource infrastructure, noting that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved an intervention for that specific purpose. Indeed, the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFund, is unrelenting in its quest towards transforming the nation's public tertiary education, Armed by the support of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Mamman, who are extremely committed to the Nigerian education project, all stakeholders in the tertiary education space should keep bracing up for more landmark achievements from the tenacious, transformative, and transcendent TETFund.
Thank you.